All right, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. It is still the special programming for the protest. That's hashtag End Bad Governance Protest. And I remain Dashen Usman. I still have my co-anchor with me in the studio.
I am Lekan, Onabanjo.
I was actually about to introduce you.
Well, it's fine.
You know, we're actually talking about, Yes, we're actually talking about, in most of our discussions, we're talking about how the president has been quiet. And we've yet to hear from Ajare, who is always on the news to, you know, bring us the latest. But, you know, as you have heard it right now, the breaking news that we have just brought to you is that, there would be a broadcast, a special broadcast from the president tomorrow, Sunday, 4th August, 7 a.m. on radio, which is FRCN, and also on NTA. All right, over to you, Lekan.
Okay, so this seems to be what a lot of Nigerians have been clamoring for in the last 3 days, the protest and bad governance that actually started. And yes, we have in the studio right now Nelson Ekujumi, who is the convener, Patriotism Awareness Forum. He will be reacting to this. And we still have Olusesan Okunade, an economist, who is also still with us in the studio, of course, to look at all these from different perspectives. But then we'll start with Nelson. Now, we have a breaking story, and the fact that the president is willing to come out to talk to Nigerians. That is tomorrow by 7 in the morning. Yeah. What do you make of that? Is it too early or too soon?
Well, I wouldn't know because I don't work in the presidential office. And don't forget that we are talking about the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria does just not wake up to make a broadcast. A lot of processes and procedures, consultations must have been done. So when I heard people saying, oh, the president should come, I was like, the government has been speaking almost every day to the Minister for Information, whom we know is the representative, is the mouthpiece of the government. If the Minister for Information speaks, he's as good as Mr. President speaking. But if the authorities, because, you know, government, you know, the way the machinery of government works is not just for one man to wake up. There are procedures to be, you know, scrutinized, you know, things put in place before the president before they will arrive at this decision. You can be rest assured that before Mr. President will come and address the nation, he must have gotten clearances from different agencies of states involved in it. So if the government, in its wisdom, wants to speak to the Nigerian people once again, like it has always done, all well and good, because the government exists for the benefit of the Nigerian people. So, like we always say, it is better to judge than to war. So if Mr. President is speaking to Nigerians, Mr. President has the right to speak to Nigerians at any point in time.
Well, we'll definitely still find out from you what you would expect the president to say, because it's a very sensitive situation as regards the protest ongoing in the country right now, and a lot of Nigerians would be willing to hear something that would actually, you know, speak to their ego, probably placate their anger, so to speak. You know, but we'll keep it that way. Now we go to Ahmadin, who was right here in Abuja, right there in Abuja, and he has been standing by to give us updates as regards how the protests has gone on in the Federal Capital Territory, in the various places that he has actually covered. Ahmadin, it's nice to have you around.
Thank you, Lekan.
Okay, so we'd like to get more updates from you, and the fact that we just got newswind that the president is now willing, will be talking affirmatively to Nigerians tomorrow in the morning. So we'd like you to tie that together with whatever information you'll be sharing with us.
I think this is a good news for the protesters, because this was one of their key demands. Though in the last few days, the protest has waned. What I mean by the protest has waned, on the first day it was spontaneous. We had several different protests erupting at different locations in the city, within the FCT, the city center, and the satellite communities. On day 3, we can confidently tell you that there are no longer protests ongoing outside the city center. There are no more protests ongoing at the satellite communities. I'm standing at the Karo satellite community, popularly called the Karo site in Abuja. And around this area, there were also protests during the first day. But if you watch clearly, you observe that people have resorted to their normal activities. And yes, indeed, though the protest has come to stay, the protesters have come to accept the fact that the Moshood Abiola National Stadium is their convergence point. But for the protesters, with this news that the president will be addressing them first thing tomorrow morning, it will be good news.
Amadin, from the beginning of the protest till up until this time, there have been concerns about how the security forces have actually handled the situation, especially in Abuja. What can you tell us about that as compared to, how the protest actually went on today, being the third day?
I think, first of all, I would like to say the position of a lot of the protesters we have spoken with. They are unhappy, but many of them remain defiant. Remember that from the first day of the protest, the police had refused them to protest within the streets. They defied that order, though the police insisted that they had a valid court order that mandated them to protest within the Moshood Abiola National Stadium. The protesters gave 2 reasons. Number 1 reason, they said they did not trust the police enough to go into the National Stadium because it was a world venue. And number 2, they said it defied every objective of the protest. So from day 1, they have continued to converge at the Moshood Abiola National Stadium. Indeed, the police has done what the police is known to do, disperse the protest at a convenient time, at the time they feel is convenient, using tear gas canisters and others. But in all, we have been speaking to a lot of the protesters. They are not happy because they believe that the protest is part of their fundamental human rights.
Thank you so much, Amadin Uyi, for these updates. We definitely will reconnect with you, even as we hope that you have more to share with us. Thank you. Let's now talk to, before I come back to Nelson, let's talk to Mr. Olusesan Okunade. You're an economist, and clearly from what our reporter right there in Abuja said, what is clear is that the protesters are still unhappy, though a few of them have gone back to living their normal lives. And we have a president who will be addressing Nigerians in the national broadcast tomorrow. What do you think should be its language and tone to actually douse the tension of these protesters who feel that they've been confined and their voices have not been heard as much as they would have wanted, and the fact that it seems as though they are being hounded by the police?
Lekan, I want this, I have this to say, and it's good that we put the record straight. The other time I said I gave a commendation to the police for their professionalism. And we must say this: if we have law in the land, it's good that we obey the law. The federal government, if you ask me, will say they are smart about confining people to a specific area because their excuse was that the security agency are not, in that number to match every areas where protesters are going to have their gathering. And the truth be told, the organizers may have good intention, like we've always seen at the beginning of every protest. But there are certain individuals who want to convert it to an avenue to loot, avenue to carry out act that is really not intended by the organizers. And I think that's why they're actually being confined in a particular area so that you can monitor and the essence of protest is to bring out some of the things that you feel you are aggrieved of and allow the other party that you have aggrieved with to give a listening ear and in tune be able to respond. Because if you protest and there is no response on the other party, you have not achieved anything. And that's why I would say kudos to the federal government and to Mr. President for after 3 days, at least he has shown he's a comrade. When you want to exhibit that which you have within you, he has given the platform for everyone to actually share their minds, share their opinion, their grievances, and the areas where he needs to address. And he has stated, like we had the breaking news, that will be addressing us tomorrow. I know Mr. President will come more in a persuasive manner that we know him to be. And we want to believe that after his speech tomorrow, we should have some respite and decorum. I'll be able to move on. Why we expect timeline to some of their deliverables.
Olusesan, we still tie that to what the president is expected to say as regards the economy. But then we just want to say thank you so much, Olusesan Okunade. Probably I'll just direct the question to Nelson when we return. But thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us, and we wish you all the best. Yeah, it's a pleasure to always be with you, Lekan and Dashen. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we go on a very short break. We will still continue to probe these situations as it concerns the end bad governance. But then, when we return, we'll look into that. All right, you are still watching End Bad Governance, a protest, a special broadcast on News Central Television. And we have been chronicling and talking about the various instances as regards the protests, how it actually started on August 1, culminating to today, August 3, where we believe that the protest will continue up until August 10. And we have been engaging various people across the spectrum in different spheres, looking at how this has gone down, how it has been managed, and what can be achieved with this protest. I would like to let you know that Nelson Ekujumi, convener Patriotism Awareness Forum, is here with us in the studio. And we are pleased to also welcome Dr. Utchay Odims, a leadership life coach, a project director also of National Youth Summit Africa. Thank you so much, Dr. Odims, for joining us.
Thank you very much, my brother. Thanks.
And we also have Deji Ajare, Executive Director, Sterling Center for Law, also joining us virtually. Thank you so much. Deji Ajare.
Thank you for having me.
All right. It's nice to have you around. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about this. Quickly, before we come to you, while I was talking about the feelings we're expressing, or actually describing how the protesters, most especially in Abuja, are actually feeling as regards how confined they've been, and the fact that now that the president is willing to talk to Nigerians. I noticed that Nelson, right here in the studio, was shaking his head. So I'd like to get the understanding of the meaning of that.
Yes, what I was shaking my head to was the fact that you were putting it, the role of the media is to inform, educate, and entertain. And we must not make the mistake of doing otherwise, or else we are all in trouble. The courts, which is an independent institution, gave an ex parte order. It wasn't the government, it wasn't the executive, that protest should be held in XY location. And you and I know very well that so long as that order has not been vacated, it's the law. And as a protester, which is within your rights to protest, you must also recognize that you can only exercise that freedom in an atmosphere of law and order. If there's anarchy, you have no rights. It's a state of nature where the strong, pounces on the weak and does whatever he or she likes. So when you say people were confined, I think it is important for us to say the court order restricted the protest to MQ Abiola Stadium, rather than saying, oh, the people were confined, that they cannot. No.
But Nelson, there's a provision of the Constitution that actually guarantees that people have the right to free assembly.
Yes.
And the right to express their grievances.
Absolutely.
So long it is peaceful. And there's no clause as to if it has to be in a particular place. And while you say that, this same Eagle Square that the Nigerian police actually trying to stop the protesters from actually accessing to continue with their protest is the same venue that we had anti-protest protesters also gather. So why would those set of people be given the opportunity to use the same facility built by taxpayers' money, and some others would not be granted the recourse to also use that same facility?
Well, I want to tell you clearly this evening that the role of the courts is to interpret the Constitution. If you have problem with a court order or a court judgment, there's a higher level for you to appeal. So it's not a one thing and that's the end. There are various layers. And also, I must tell you that no right is absolute. If not, then you and your friends can decide to come and protest in my bedroom. Because you must recognize that every right comes with a responsibility and duties. Even though the Constitution gives you the right to protest, because that right to protest is not absolute, if the police or the security agencies have reasons, have facts to suspect that in the exercise of that your function, it could lead to a breakdown of law and order, or you could be armed, they have a responsibility to go and rescue you. The constitutional responsibility of the police is to maintain law and order. So you cannot take that away from them. So if the court has given an order and some persons are flouting it, I think what any responsible person should do, a lover of peace, is to go back to the court, go and inform the court, because that will amount to contempt of a court order, which is a violation of the law.
Okay. All right. Let's hear from Deji Ajare, as regards the same question that was asked Nelson, and what you think about it, since you're the executive director, Stirring Center for Law, because, a lot of these protesters actually feel, like just as Lekan has actually said, that they were confined, and that was why they took to the streets. They were not granted the permission to use that particular stadium. Meanwhile, the anti-protesters were granted permission. So what are your thoughts on that?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I think I hold a totally different opinion from your guest in the studio there. And there are issues around the court order that require, some sort of attention and could actually be interpreted by any fair-minded observer as being malicious. Now, why, when there has been an announcement of a planned protest for about a month, the government did not take any step within this 1 month period to obtain any order in order to give proper notice to those who are planning this protest in order to be prepared. And only a day, on the eve of the commencement of the protest, they now went and obtained an ex parte order, an order, of course, which does not give the other party an opportunity to be heard. While I am not challenging the authority of the courts to grant orders, but I am worried and concerned. And I think any fair-minded person, like I said, will be indeed concerned about the genuineness of the intentions of the government. And because if indeed the government was interested in, protecting the protesters, which is, of course, it's one of its fundamental responsibilities, then it should have given an opportunity for these kinds of engagement. Because in the first place, it is failure or refusal to engage with the citizens that led to these protests in the first place. So what it means is that the government still does not understand the problems that are on ground. And so I will be worried. I will be worried, and I will be concerned that means we're not even making any progress, really. Because if the government wants to show that it is genuinely interested or genuinely committed to meeting with the demands of, engaging with the protesters and looking into their demands and seeing those things that can be met, at least in the short term, then one of the first things the government should have done, is to even avoid taking this kind of action that they did. And so it is not unlikely that this kind of action will rile up the protesters, as they will see the government as trying to circumvent their efforts at ensuring that they speak out their voices.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Odims, of course, you would have listened to Nelson Ekujumi talk about the fact that probably the police felt there's a possibility of the protesters in the course of exercising their rights, making it become violent, so to speak, and all whatnot. And these are youths who are actually on the streets. For what you've seen so far, is there anything that speaks to the fact that there's a possibility that the protesters in Abuja trying to access the Eagle Square are probably going to, at some point, become violent in the exercise of their rights?
Yeah, anyway, the truth is this, is that, every nation, to a very large extent, protects her youths because they are the generation of the now and even the future. For so long a time, you're telling a lot of young people you are the leaders of tomorrow. And interestingly, or funny enough, many of them have realized that, many of them actually take it as if it's like a falsified statement and all, because so many of them have been waiting to assume the leadership position for so many years. And right now, some of them are 60 years old. They've not even done nothing. Why? Because the very elderly ones are preoccupied, have stayed there. And it looks to the young people that they are not even giving them opportunity. What's actually happening right now is like a fusion or a compressed version of the annoyance of so many years and all. For so long a time, the young people have not been given the opportunity to contribute to governance. And it's a big problem. Who are the ones that are bringing about all the innovations and all the things that are happening around the world and stuff? Are the young people. It's high time that Nigeria, the leadership especially, understand. What I even expect right now is that this government should midwife the new Nigeria of our dream by engaging the young people meaningfully. I hear statements like a lot of young people are very irresponsible, a lot of them are, it's a big lie. I remember there was one particular time I had the opportunity of meeting with former President Olusesan Obasanjo and all. And of course, the narrative that people normally say, I told him that day clearly. I said, Your Excellency, sir, people usually say the young people are very unserious, are very whatever. I told him, I said, me, as I'm here now, I can assemble about 800 to 1,000 young people that have not messed up, soiled their hand, either in crime, either in crime, Yahoo, or whatever and stuff, that are intelligent, making impact globally around the world. Our platform, African Advancement Forum, we meet with people regularly, Africans, Nigerians that are doing great around the world regularly and all. And you tell me that the young people are not serious? Our young people are extremely serious. And I told him, I said, I can put together about 1,000. And by that, through that 1,000, we can reach out to even 10,000 and all. What I'm trying to say in a nutshell is that they are great men and great women, but it looks as if their voice is being stifled. That was a very wrong move. Trying to stop the protesters from accessing the venue that they want to use. What would have happened? For crying out loud, they even accepted that they want to use a particular place. They would have actually allowed them, granted them the place, and provide security around.
All right, Doctor. Sorry for cutting you short now, but would actually, be going on a quick break. And when we come back, we'll give you the opportunity to continue speaking on this. Apologies. All right, we'll be right back in a bit.
It's a special broadcast on End Bad Governance protest in Nigeria, all the way from News Central Television right here, live in our studios. And we have been talking about how these protests have gone on and what can be achieved with it, with the youths on the streets. Earlier on, we told you that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will be addressing Nigerians tomorrow, August 4, 7 a.m. as regards these protests. And this is something that a lot of Nigerians have been agitating for, looking at the fact that the protest started on August 1 and today is the third day. And this would be apt, according to some sectors, hoping that the governor, or the president rather, will be able to say something that can actually douse the tension. Let's also let you know that we have Nelson Ekujumi, who is the convener, Patriotism Awareness Forum. He has been talking to us live here in the studio. We also have Dr. Utchay Odims, Leadership Life Coach, Project Director of National Youth Summit Africa, joining us via, of course, virtually. And we also have Deji Ajare, Executive Director, Sterling Center for Law. Also, he has been talking to us virtually, and we've been x-raying all this and trying as much as possible to have a perspective, different perspectives from them on this. Now, let's come to Nelson Ekujumi.
Yes,
Dashen.
well, my next question is for you, Nelson. Now, there was something Lekan said earlier about what should the language and the tone of the president be, you know, in tomorrow's address? And this is, I think the reason why he asked that is because in the president's past addresses, a lot of Nigerians, it doesn't seem to resonate with a lot of Nigerians because they do not feel connected to some of the things that he had to say in his addresses. So what will make tomorrow's address different?
Well, I belong to those Nigerians that have always listened to Mr. President since he assumed office on May 29, 2023. And I've seen a president tell his people, I can feel your pains. I understand what you are going through. Be rest assured that we are doing everything to address it. I don't know which other language could be more conciliatory, could be more fatherly when you are talking to people. When you use such language that I feel your pain, I understand the challenges. You can be rest assured that you have put me in this office to find solutions to these problems. And I can assure you, I will not rest until I make your life better. I don't know which other language you want to resonate with you. I don't know the type of mindset you have. Because we've had this in the past. When former President Muhammadu Buhari, if he doesn't speak, they will say he didn't speak. By the time he come on there, they will say he's speaking bad English. And we are like, is it his English you are listening to or the message is passing? Lekan mentioned one thing earlier on. He was asking one of your guests virtually, that is he, does he have the view that the people in Abuja, if they had gone into the street, that they will become violent? I'm sorry, I'm a Yoruba man. And we have a saying in Yoruba land that says, Omonumi ni mo le jeri. Eti mo konseyin mo le jeri. You know what that means? That a woman who is pregnant is telling you, I can only vouch for the baby in my womb. But you say the one I'm backing, I don't know whether he has taken biscuit from one woman's head who is passing, or he or she has removed somebody's head gear. Because I can't see my back. So you don't know the intentions of people until they exercise it. It's not written. People's intentions is not written on their faces.
People that are without weapons, not carrying weapons or anything. And we are talking about an Eagle Square that has artillery, heavy military vehicles in there. And you expect youth to go there and cause mayhem.
Lekan, we are talking about going into the streets. Don't forget, we have experiences of states where protesters went into the streets and you saw how they looted businesses.
In reference, in reference, where are you
so if the government
in reference, where are you talking about?
In Kano, in Katsina,
okay.
In Kaduna. So if the government in its wisdom has said, the authorities have said, let us have your itinerary so that we can provide you security, so that tomorrow you won't come and tell us, oh, it was hijacked, it was miscreant. I ask people, what is the difference between somebody you call a miscreant and somebody who is protesting? Is a miscreant written on anybody's head?
But did the anti-protesters provide an itinerary?
Provided what?
Did they provide the itinerary for the government that made the government give them access to
you see,
Eagle Square?
let me educate us all. I've been a product of protests as I sit before you. And anytime we are holding protests, it is our duty to inform the police to provide us security, because that is security of the state. Because as a protester, the rights that you have is also the right that a non-protester has. I'll tell you for free, a lot of times people in protest, they see it as a license for lawlessness. We organize protests from Ikeja, under the bridge in Ikeja. We are taking a protest to Alausa, the seat of government. Under the bridge at Ikeja, along Obafemi Awolowo Way, within 200 meters, you see people you have mobilized, you have spoken to, they will call that woman or that boy selling beverages or selling snacks. And before you know it, all of them will start picking it. As if that man who is hawking, that is supposed to supply them those things free. And we have to intervene, because when we are organizing protests, we set up security committee, because people will infiltrate your protests who have other ulterior motives.
All right, Nelson, thank you so much for that response. Let's quickly talk to Deji Ajare as regards this. And when Nelson talked about the violence that we noticed in Kano, let's just pin it around the north, because we're talking about Kano, Jigawa, Kaduna, Yobe, and some other parts in the northern region. And we're talking about looting, the define of curfew, the vandalism that characterized that particular region, attempted attack on the Emir of Dara's palace and the house of the ex-president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, according to details that we have. Now, the question is there a way that, according to demographs, Nigerians are interpreting the hardship, the economic hardship in the country? Okay, I just got to know that Deji is not online right now. So I'll just put that question to Dr. Utchay Odims. So does it seem as though there is a different interpretation and expression on the part of Nigerians as regards how they choose, or they're choosing to react to this hardship? One. Two, does it look as though there are some certain people being sponsored to discredit these protests? Two. Three, does it actually reflect the possibility of these protests being hijacked and becoming a total breakdown of law and order? So look at it from these three angles, and let's get your thoughts on this.
Anyway, definitely, whenever there's a conflict interest on a protest and all, it usually ends up in a very bad way. And that's why, and definitely there's no way, from what I heard here and there and all, or you have the pro-Tinubu president group, and you have the people that are protesting against hunger and the rest of it. Definitely there's going to be a clash. That's the truth. I mean, you can't put two people with interest in the same room. It doesn't make no sense. The only way it can make sense is if you're having them in a town hall meeting, and that one is regulated. But we're talking about people that are venting their anger. What this person will say might get the other person angry. So that was not the best move. When I heard about the two sets of people coming together in Moshood Abiola Stadium, I was like, whoa, that is ridiculous. That's not the best. I mean, come to think of it, we're talking about young people. We're talking about vibrant people with energy and all, with swag, if you may put it like that, and everything. What do you expect? Definitely it's going to end up in chaos. And I actually want to also say something about the northern part of Nigeria. And, you know, the northern part of Nigeria, talking about the Jigawa, the Borno, and the rest of it, I mean, it's, how do I put it right now? It's a volatile state. Why do I say that? It's not same thing like Lagos. Need to understand that, not same thing. And I actually want to advise the governors. Yesterday, I was watching the interview of Governor Basani and, I mean, a couple of other people, what they are saying and all. I actually want to advise them, because the truth of the matter is this, is that you see those people in the northern region, you see those young people, many of them, a lot of them are, how do I put it? They didn't go to school. A lot of them don't even have a sense of belonging and all and everything. I mean, people from that region should be very careful. It's time for them to actually put up programs that will help to re-engineer their youths. A lot of the youths, they are not the same thing like youths in Lagos. They are far. Many of them are marginally, they didn't go to school. They don't even know what the world is talking about. And now they are hungry. That is like double, if it's a church, you say double anointing in one day, hunger plus another, it is ridiculous. They should be very, very careful. It's high time that they put up programs, not political programs. I want to advise all the governors within our northern region, I mean, if you're involved in that, please stop. Because the truth is this, is that there's always an appointment date. We saw what happened there. Just a little opportunity, what they did. One day, they might not even announce it. They're lucky that it was announced by the organizers of these protesters and the rest of it. One day, it might not be announced. They have to put up programs to educate their youth, to empower. There are two things that can help Nigeria right now, very important. You see, wealth creation and value reorientation. These are the two things that can help Nigeria right now. Anybody that is saying anything right now, the youth don't want to hear. Whether you have very good, wonderful stuff or whatever. I know Mr. President has a lot of wonderful things on his table, but he needs to. The implementation is very, very important. And the people that are around him and all need to understand that the times have changed. In fact, when I heard that Mr. President is going to be addressing the nation tomorrow morning, I was very happy, excited, because that was one of the major things I wanted to dwell on today. I was very excited that he's going to address the nation. But what I want to say is this: let there be new policy.
Okay.
Let it be that this is like a new government entirely that will bring about the Nigeria we want and bring about the Nigerian dream. Time for guesswork and play is over. Let's get into action. Nigerians are great people, and we can be the largest and the biggest economy beyond Africa. I believe in Nigeria.
All right,
if you can do it in entertainment, if you can do it in other areas, you can do it in Nigeria.
Doctor, we'll definitely come back to you on that. But I actually love how you're able to connect the violence that happened in the north, especially in Kano State, to the high rate of illiteracy in that particular town. Kano has actually been known for that, especially when there's a protest. A lot of hoodlums take advantage of that. Despite the governor's support, on the protest, it's sad to see what actually transpired. But then we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we will continue with the show. Do stay with us.
And the conversation continues as regards the end of bad governance protest. Of course, this is a special broadcast, as we told you earlier, on News Central Television. And we also told you that President Bola Tinubu will be addressing Nigerians in a national broadcast tomorrow, August 4, by 7 a.m. And a lot of Nigerians are anticipating what it is that the president will be saying, and the kind of messages that he will be passing on to Nigerians, most especially Nigerians that are actually aggrieved as regards how the style of governance has been, and the fact that there's economic hardship as regards the policies of government that has been rolled out in this administration in the last 1 year. So a lot of Nigerians will be hoping to hear from the president tomorrow morning. We're pleased to let you know that we still have Nelson Ekujumi, convener Patriotism Awareness Forum, right here in the studios with us, and Dr. Utchay Odims, Leadership Life Coach, Project Director of National Youth Summit Africa, also with us virtually. And we're also pleased to welcome Akin Bash, an APC Chieftain in Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for providing the opportunity to air my views as far as the national discourse is concerned.
Dashen.
All right, so now, I don't know if we still have a doctor with us.
We have Dr. Utchay Odims with us.
Okay, all right, so now let's hear from you, Mr. Akin Bash. Now let's hear from you, as regards the whole protest, how it escalated on the first day, and where we are at now, and the fact that finally Mr. President has decided that he will be speaking to us tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we should commend Mr. President for being sensitive and for taking the decision to talk to Nigerians. I think that's out of sensitivity, because a lot of people are expecting him to talk to Nigerians. So for me, it's a welcome development. But generally, I think on the protest, I think lessons have been learned, by the pro and the anti. Lessons have been learned because if you're talking about the success of the protest, as far as I'm concerned, we are all witnesses to the way it has happened. All right? At some regional level, there were almost no protests. And in those regions, when I say no protest, no protest in some instances, and where you have a pocket of protests, they were very, very non-violent. But of course, in the northern part, we experienced some violence. Whether the violence was instigated by the kind of protest that was envisaged by those who claim to have called for the protests that were hardly known, that for me, they still remain faceless, that cannot be connected with. So the eruption we had in the north, for me, I think has some socio-political dimension to it. And of course, there was this clamor, talk to the protesters. Who are these protesters? Under what guise are they protesting? Even take it back Nigeria, where you had the Bunwade Buruwa as their lawyer, Agbodowa is the one who is now canvassing that there should be no protest any longer. But no sooner he said it, the take back people said, sorry, you were never our lawyer. All right? So the challenge has always been, who do you talk to?
Nigerians.
If it's Nigerians, are Nigerians altogether? Because when I hear people say Nigerians, I'm a Nigerian. That's what mean. Even from the protest you had, that's what you'll have said is a protest for all Nigerians. From the experience we have.
Why would you say so?
I would say so. In the southeast, nobody's protesting.
But there's a reason for that.
Whatever it is, reason. In the south, nobody's protesting. In the middle belt, I don't know where the protests are. In the southwest, you could see pockets that some state there was no protest.
So are you saying that, with what you're saying, are you saying that the north is actually most affected with the cost of living crisis happening? Because we did see a protest start a day before the end bad governance protest in Niger State.
If you followed me, I have said earlier on that the circumstances, the situation in the north, for me, had some socio-political undertone. Okay? Because when you looked at the set of people that came out to protest, there is no way you would say they were protesting for good governance when they turned to be looters. So looters, destroyers of national assets, state assets, you understand? We won't pretend not to know that there had been political misunderstanding in that part of the country. But we must equally thank those who are at the ends of affairs there, the governors and all that were able to come up very quickly with some strategic approach to nip it in the bud.
Okay.
So that our experience over there in the first day is not the same thing what we are having in the second day. So you must give kudos to them that they've been able to rein in whatever tendencies, whatever factors, that led to the unintended consequences of an intended peaceful protest.
All right. Dr. Utchay Odims, let me bring you into this now. Now, we've seen some society groups, some other groups of well-meaning thoughts come out to say that they are not going to be part of the protest. Even the NLC and the TVC just lended their voice to it, but they said since they've not been involved, they will not be actively taking part in the protest. The Easterners have also said for a particular reason, they will not also be joining the protest, and that is actually played out. So would you say that the fact that this protest has not actually covered the length and breadth of the country, it has whittled down the influence this protest should have had based on what those who have called for the protest, the organizers, are actually, envisaged?
The truth of the whole matter is this, most times it's very important that we talk about things from the proper perspective. Yeah. Whether, when I hear things like people that are organizing the protest, they are faceless, they are whatever and all, the truth of the matter is this, is that this protest, if anybody wants to be sincere across the country, whether you are an elite or whether you are a normal person, you can tell that is biting hard on you. That's the truth. Let nobody deceive itself about it. It's biting very hard, the economy. Then you cannot imagine. You know what you have in Nigeria right now is that you have the elite, the middle class that disappeared, and the poor people. Now, right now, the poor population is almost disappearing entirely. When people are now feeding from dustbin and the rest of it, you don't need to have a face for that. All they just need is an opportunity. Now, what happened is that this presented itself and they took advantage of it. That's the thing. When this whole thing started, I became bothered. Because when a man is hungry, when a man is not sure of the next 1 hour, when a man cannot afford basic things like food, basic things like even getting water and a couple of stuff, the man will throw restraint into air. Believe you me, everybody is affected. Even the security apparatus, the police is affected, the army is affected. Every security, even the media, even you that is talking to me in News Central, you are affected. Everybody in Nigeria is affected. So when people come out and make statements like, no. What we need to do now, the worst thing that can happen to anybody is for you to be lying to yourself. What will happen right now is for people that are around Mr. President, people that are close to him, to tell him, Your Excellency, this is a major problem at hand. How do we handle it? Of course, I can see some couple of moves that the president has made and everything. But before this protest started, the protesters gave enough information and all. But the way it was handled, so as if the poor are not, excuse me, nobody needs to be, who are the faces? There are faces attached to it. There are. Even if it's the smallest boy that nobody knows. It must not be until there's somebody like a Falana, until there's somebody like Professor Olu-wole Mike or whoever, before they know it's a face. Every one of them, Professor Olu-wole Mike and Falana, they grew up from when they were young. They started from when they were young. The young people are saying that we are not happy because many of them have been waiting for elders to talk and nobody is talking. So they decide to take their destinies in their hand. That's what's playing out.
Dr. Odims, don't you think, Dr. Odims,
get this whole process for us to, that's exactly what's happening right now. So
Dr. Odims, sorry to butt in.
Because they're dying, they are hungry.
Sorry to butt in. Do you think if this particular movement had a face or maybe a structure, they would have been able to coordinate these protests better to actually pocket the kind of violence that we've seen happen in the north? A bit of coordination, probably, have people talk to them and say, hey, this is the focus, do not do this. Do you think if there was a bit of structure, that could have helped managed or doused whatever kind of insurrection that might have occurred?
When you're talking about structure and all, structure comes in different ways. I mean, from day one, when I checked my online and all, I saw the demands that what they want and the rest of it. Prior information to government, to Nigerians. My brother, that is structure. That's structure. And if you notice very well, after a while, you start seeing people that are saying that we don't know about the protest, we are not part of it, we are pulling out. Many of them were not part of the people that planned it. So how can you pull out for something you don't know anything about? So you see, it started having a political interface. But the funniest thing is that this particular protest is very organic. Mark my word, very organic. What we should do is that let's say truth to power. Let's stop this. You see, Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a man I have a lot of great respect for. He's a man, he's a pragmatic, somebody that's very pragmatic in his actions and all. But people that are around him should tell him the truth. Okay. I mean, saying faceless and all that, that's not the solution. We should dwell on solutions. Right now, the protest is going to come to an end. But after the protest, what next? Let's not destroy the benefits of what happened in this particular stuff.
All right, Doctor. Yes, let's come back to Nelson in the studio. I know you have a lot to say as regards, what the doctor has said, but I actually have, a different question to ask you, and it's about the reported attacks on journalists, during the protest. In fact, one of our correspondents, that's Bernard Ekujumi, a day before the protest started, he went to the toll gate to do a report, and he was stopped by security agencies, that security men that were stationed there. Now, I just want you to tell us what this says about press freedom in Nigeria.
Well, thank you very much. I think any attack on a journalist should be condemned, because the journalist does not stay in the studio or in his office to manufacture news. He goes out there to cover stories and he reports to inform the citizenry. So for me, if journalists are attacked, it's condemnable. And I think it brings to the fore the fact that if we still continue to witness this, then it means we have not invested enough in our security agencies to recognize that the media are partner in progress. So for me, I think we need to go back to the drawing board that how can we better the relationship between the media and the security agencies so that they will know that they are both working for the same purposes. Then, secondly, coming to some of the things your guest virtually spoke to and the guest here in the studio. Before this protest, if you go and read the press release by the Department of State Services, they made it very clear that this protest was being organized to cause a breakdown of law and order, that there is violence undertone in the protest. Even the police, I still read the press release of the police of the 31st of August, July, by DCP Olu-wole Mike, where they also informed Nigerians that these protesters, the organizers, had ulterior motive. And that ulterior motive is what we have seen in those, because we organized the 2012 protest in Ojota. You cannot predict what a human being can do. That is why you need to be in a place where you can monitor if you're on the street, how many people can you police? Even the security agencies will not be able to police them. So, but when you are in a confined location, because it's about a message, you are talking about these protesters. Look at the plethora of demands. You don't even know who is talking. The Take It Back movements that wants to come and assume the face, because the Inspector General of Police in his press conference with the media about 2 days ago said they don't know the organizers of this protest. They went into hiding because this is what they wanted. Today at Ojota, we are, even after they have agreed with the Commissioner of Police in Lagos, they made the attempt to enter the streets for what? To go and unleash havoc, violence on people, to roots. So if you have genuine intentions, even if you stay under a tree, it is for the media to report what you are saying. It is not about you marching in because when you march into the streets, you don't know who will come in. Now, and you will not be able to control it. But because they wanted violence, that is why they went underground, even when they were called for discussions. Till this moment, except if the Inspector General of Police comes up this evening to tell us they have discovered or they have come forward. But as we speak, they are still faceless and unknown. Those people you see are what the Yorubas call Mogbomuya.
Posters.
Ekujumi, one of our reporters said he also had reservations about having these protesters confined, most especially in Ojota now, because they had people there confined inside that Ghanaian park.
Yeah.
Reasons being that the crowd is much and the space cannot contain. So even if there's an issue, there could be a possibility of a stampede because it's just one way in, one way out.
Yeah.
Doesn't that count for something? And when you say that these protesters are willing to go to the streets to cause mayhem or to attack, I'm wondering where you got your facts from to have had that inclination.
Where I got my facts from is what happened in Kano, Kaduna, Yobe.
No, I'm talking about Ojota now.
No, I've just told you.
But it has been peaceful in Lagos.
Because it is peaceful now, does not mean you can predict what will happen the next minute.
And does not mean that it will still not be peaceful.
Yes, it does not mean. So, in order for you to be sure, I told you that when we held the 2012 protests in Ojota, under the administration of former President Goodluck Jonathan, we were in that Ganifa Park, we spilled onto the road. So if your population spills beyond the park, the police will not tell you to stand on the head of each other. They cannot do that because we are talking of human beings. So what we are telling you is that the states has gone to court to obtain an order. And like I said, and you must get this very clear for our viewers, you can only protest because there is law and order. If there's anarchy, you can't protest. So you go run if you see people way past you. So you must, as a citizen, if you want to exercise your freedom, your right, you pray for peace, law and order to exist. It is critical. So when people have ulterior motives, somebody is telling me they're organic. We saw the consequences of an organic protest in 2020 now.
What was the consequence? What was the consequence?
The consequences were looting, burning, killing.
By who?
By the protesters.
How?
Or protesters. Who burnt the BRT buses? Is it Lekan?
So do you have videos? Do you have evidence to prove that those who actually did were protesters?
There was a protest. Abi, was there a protest?
There was. I'm asking, do you have confirmation?
Please, hold on. We are not having an argument.
Of course.
There was a protest in 2012, in 2020. BRT buses were burnt.
By who?
By protesters.
How?
The TVC was burnt down.
Okay, so...
The court in Iboshere was burnt down.
Okay, Nelson...
So, okay, go and identify those that burnt it, if it's not the protesters.
But we just painted a narrative that hoodlums could...
Who are hoodlums?
Oh, so if you cannot identify the hoodlums, how come you can identify the protesters?
All right, gentlemen,
but they don't like protesters too.
Oh, they don't like protesters.
Okay, that's it, Ekujumi. Thank you so much. We're actually enjoying this because, you know, we need to put this in proper perspective and have people understand what this is all about. Dr. Utchay Odims, I'd like you to just continue to stay with us. Akin Bash will also get a reaction on this, but we need to quickly go on a break. When we return, we'll continue to x-ray this.
All right, welcome back, and thank you for staying with us on this special program, #End Bad Governance Protests. Now, we still have our guests with us in the studio, and we have a few more minutes before we wrap up this particular show. Now, we still have Dr. Utchay Odims, who joined us virtually and has been speaking to us. We also have Mr. Nelson Ekujumi, who is in the studio with us, and also Akin Bash, who is still in the studio with us. Now, Akin Bash, we actually need to hear your voice right now. And my question to you would have to be on the address by the president that would be happening tomorrow. Do you think that, after the address, that the president's address would be able to douse the tensions, or stop the protests that's actually happening?
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me say this. As far as I'm concerned, the protest has stopped. It's not effective. It has not stopped anything except for fear, whatever. And let me also say this, because when Nancy was talking, there was this argument here, identifying, you were trying to differentiate between protesters
and the hoodlums.
I don't know what differentiation you want to do. If there was no protest, if there was no attempt to protest, nobody would join. I don't even want to call them hoodlums. I want to call them accessories to the protesters. Because if there was no protest, nobody would join you. Now let me ask you this, what happened in the north? Would you call that protest? But what guys did those guys come out? A call for protest by faceless people. But let's leave that as it is. That's how today, I'm not sure there's any protest anywhere. Even Ojota you were talking about, that even, how many people can you count in Ojota protesting? 100, 200 people? How could they have occupied even that part you are talking about? So the protest for me was really a waste. But if I had my way, there wouldn't have been any protest, because the protest has even ended before it started. And what do I mean? The kind of pressure, the kind of exposure, the kind of challenges, the kind of, engagements, you understand, that came about few days before that protest showed clearly that the government was worried by calling stakeholders, traditional rulers, youth leaders, different engagements, to show that yes, the government takes serious, the threat, and the government is quite aware of the situation in the country. I'm equally affected, all of us. But the issue is this: what approach do we now use to ensure that things get better? Is it an approach that will be civil, or an approach that will be violent, that will lead to destruction? When there is destruction now, the money you expect, or what you expect for the government to move on improving our lives, will also be taken back there. You understand? So Mr. President is going to speak to Nigerians. It's a soothing balm. There's no doubt about it. And I'm sure that going forward, by tomorrow, we'll be there. But the fact is that Mr. President has always shown that he's aware that things are not going on well. He's aware that people are not enjoying the best of times. He has always said that. You understand? And he has always pleaded, please, we need more time to be able to do this. Thank you. My advice is that let us come together. Let's listen to him. Let us drop whatever political, whatever, annoyances or attitudes or whatever that we may have and move this country forward. I look forward to a great address from Mr. President that will talk about way forward for Nigerians in a way that is going to alleviate our common challenges, common problems that we all face.
Okay, I just want to get something straight. Dr. Odims, can you hear me? If you're still there.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, so please, just a very straightforward question now. What emotions do you think drove the protesters to come out and demonstrate? Would you say it's that of frustration, anger, or that of hope?
To be very frank with you, and frank with Nigerians, it was what drove them is hyper frustration. In fact, I was speaking in a conference one day, and I told them something. I said there are different ways to discover your talent, and they were looking at me. I said one that is paramount, that is top on the list and all, is hunger. Hunger makes you discover your talent. Have you noticed what happens where there's something like an audition and all? They said they need just only maybe first person winner, first runner up and second runner up, and you have almost like close to 1 million entries, 500,000 entries and all. Why do you think people are doing that? A lot of Nigerian youths are frustrated. So they just want to go. Let it just be that I am there. Let it just be that I belong. If you notice what's happening within the social media, you see the level of frustration that is going on. And you need to harness this energy. Nigerian youths are frustrated. You know, there's a platform, which I'm the project director, National Youth Summit Africa. We started this thing since 2007. In Nigeria, yeah. Of course, we have program at Ego Square, Jam Dates, National Opera. And one time we had about 120,000 people gathered and all. We trained them, do rally for Nigeria. Do you know, we've been doing this particular project with personal funds and many individuals in Nigeria. We've done it for several years. And we keep saying that, listen, it's time for us to engage the Nigerian youth. Because a time will come when we don't have any explanation. I saw what was happening. A lot of people from the government trying to explain. Somebody was saying something, you explain, you go tired. Many people got tired of saying, you explain here, explain there, explain here, explain there. No, we don't need all that. What I expect is that let's now engage these young people properly. Engage them properly. I was speaking at a conference in Port Harcourt with a lot of top government officials the other day and all. That was some months ago. And I told them something. I said our educational curriculum, to a large extent, is obsolete. Every country creates their curriculum based on needs. What we need right now is not even people graduating as doctors, as lawyers, very important, business administration, some funny courses, botany, a lot of funny courses around and whatever. We need to train our people. Now, in fact, our university curriculum should be 70% vocational and 30% when it has business administration. That's what we should do now. Very critical. We need to train people. One thing that is missing in our country right now, and I'm addressing this to the Minister of Labour, and also Minister of Youths and all, we need to have what we call dignity of labor, where a man can be a plumber, a man can be a mechanic, but he or she is proud. He or she can actually go and ask for the hand of a beauty queen in marriage. High time that we stop this thing about wearing all ties and all the rest of it. Nigerians are great people. Look at China. How did they develop? Vocational skill, industrialization. We need that now. Government need to look at that. Let it be that somebody graduates out of school with a degree on plumbing. Yes, can call it any name. Graduates a degree on, you can call it mechanic. Many people have some mechanical engineering, but they don't even know anything. People do PLP and all. And these are areas that we can make a lot of money. We need to rejig our educational curriculum. We need to instill confidence in our young people. Believe you me, we can actually pull out our young people from poverty and from unemployment if we strategically position this stuff. So what I'm advocating is this. Let this program, let this whole thing that happened, this particular week, this past week, let it be that by the time Mr. President addresses the country, that there's a new Nigeria. A new Nigeria where leaders will serve the people. Where people are in power, we know that you are holding the trust of the people. You are not a lord. You are a servant to the people. Nobody made you God to the people. You are serving them. And people should understand something. Power is transient. I usually explain this. I usually define life as turn by turn Nigeria Limited. That you are dead tomorrow, you will leave. Nobody will remain here forever. Everybody's going to die. One day, somebody's going to die. When you die, what are you going to bequeath to your next generation?
Dr. Odims, a few things you've actually raised now. I just want to ask one question. The president will be addressing Nigerians tomorrow. If he calls for a national dialogue with the youths, organizers of these protests, in a way, would you advocate for these people to now show their face and formally, physically present their case to the president and look at areas whereby these things or these agitations or concerns can be ironed out?
Of course, as a major youth leader that has been in this whole space for over 2 decades right now, definitely I'm going to advocate for that. Definitely. So whatever, any grievances or anything, I mean, should calm down. I know Mr. President is going to do well tomorrow. I know he's going to. Mr. President is very smart. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a smart man. That's why they call him Jagaban. He's not answering it for child's play. I know he's going to do well by tomorrow. And that will be a major legacy he's going to leave for. That's the truth. Mr. President, leave a legacy. Forget about all the people that are around you. Many people that are close to people that are in power, a lot of them are psychophants. That's the truth. They just want to say something that will please Mr. President. Mr. President, leave a legacy.
Okay.
Nigeria is about 70% young people. 70%. You can't discount that population. Come up with something that will leave you as a hero, that will make Nigerians love you. Nobody hates you. The young people don't hate you. That's the truth. There's something you're going to do right now that will make everybody start singing your praises. And that's what we are looking for. And you'll be glad at the end of the day. And Nigeria will be better for it. And God will bless Nigeria. And the Nigerian dream will come to pass. Believe you me.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Odims. Now, I'm not sure which of you actually laughed.
I want to get the both of them. I want to get the both of them.
One of you actually found, something a doctor said funny.
Well, I didn't hear him properly.
Okay, I did laugh, no doubt about that. One, and that's because I think, the discourse about the protest, it was varying the way around it. Then number two, it's not the youths alone that are having issues, all right? It's the generality of Nigerians that are facing the socio-economic consequences of reform efforts that the government believes, with time will put us on a good stead. You understand that? So we are facing we're facing the consequence of that. But my joy is that there's a consensus among the three of us that Asiwaju is a leader who can deliver. Asiwaju is a leader who knows where the shoe pinches. You understand? And is a leader who frontally will confront issues. What he's facing today is because he has tread where past leaders couldn't have tread. And that's the honest truth. Unification of Naira, no subsidy, so many things. And whether we like it or not, that's where our problem is. We're having crude for close to 4 decades. We cannot even refine here. We are still importing fuel. And then somebody says, sorry, this cannot continue. If Dangote is there, NPC is coming up. There are other people who are interested in building refineries. So if all of these things come on stream, definitely is going to impact positively on us.
Okay. Now, Nelson, you said something about the protest. You said it was a failure. The protest was a failure. Why do you say so? And the fact that the president has decided to address the nation tomorrow, and he talked about a call for a national dialogue. If, the president, approves that and decides to speak with those, that's the protesters, would you still see the protest as a failure?
Well, the truth of the matter is that if I watch the protests very well, when we organize protests, the imports of protests has been defeated by the way these faceless people went about this. We organize protests for a better society, not to cause havoc, pain, tears, and sorrow.
Yeah.
Then, when we make our points, we go home. We don't, even when our lawyers, you just gave the information out there. When their lawyer said, make it a one-day affair and go home, they said they are no longer a legal counsel, which means nobody is going to, just like the NSAS people, when the government acceded to the 5-5 demands and said, come forward, let us dialogue. They said we don't have leadership. They increased the demands to maybe 38, including Buhari must go. The same thing with this present protests. Some persons, I looked at the protests since yesterday. You could count the number of them at the protest ground. Look at the protests in Benin. The people walking, who are there for commercial activity, are even more than the protesters. If in Ojota, the media is more than the protesters. Is that the best? If you allow the essence of protest to be defeated, then we're all in trouble. And that is what some of us warned against.
Ekujumi.
So you're saying that the essence of a protest should be in the numbers and not what the people
The
are
essence
about to demand?
of a protest should be in the message, even if you are one.
Even if it's one, exactly what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. So when you have passed the message, okay, you have gathered somewhere, you have read, because when we go on protest, just today I read reports where the police said they've arrested about 638 or thereabout, and they recovered arms and ammunition. When we go on protest, we go with placards and megaphone. You can't even see stick with us because it's about the message to the people. But when you go on an unpopular protest, the economic condition is affecting all of us.
You're carrying arms?
And Mr. President has told us repeatedly, the Minister for Information, the Secretary to the Government of Federation, the government at the state level, even at the local government levels, have come out to tell us that Nigerians, please be patient with us. The bold economic reforms will come with pains. Like we say, no pain, no gain. That's the reality of life. When I was in school, I burned the midnight candle so that I'll come out of. Ordinarily, I would have been sleeping, and if I sleep very well, I will come out with 0 grades.
Nelson, most of the protesters, because like we told you earlier, we have reporters covering the protests across, as many states as we can.
Yeah.
And none of the protesters were actually carrying weapons.
None
of the protesters are actually carrying weapons.
Because
we have reporters on ground who have covered this.
Your duty as a journalist. Hold on. You are missing. You see, that's the problem we have in the public space. You are not a security personnel. When they wanted to start the protest, the police discovered IED on a mobile bank Anthony Way.
Not planted by protesters.
Oh, you know.
By who? By who?
No. So this is the thing. If we assume that it was planted.
No, we didn't. I didn't assume.
But this is the narrative you're playing.
Technically, because the
protest had not started. In Borno State, 4 persons died because a bomb exploded when they were protesting.
You agree with that?
So it is only the police that has the constitutional responsibility. For example, if somebody was shot at the protest ground, you can't say he was shot by the police or he was shot by X. It is when an autopsy, it is when an autopsy is conducted. And who has authority to conduct autopsy? It is the state. So when you as a journalist who is covering an event in which there are several people and you are covering just one spot, and the Nigerian police, you and I know that they are in 774 local governments in Nigeria, and you don't have a duty for providing security, you want to stray and tell me that no, I won't take that.
Nelson, this is what I'm actually saying, is that, fine, explosives were discovered, but there is no empirical evidence. I don't think even the police has come out to say that it was actually planted by protesters. That's what I'm saying.
What was that?
That the police has not come out to say that it was planted
What was planted?
We're talking about the explosives.
The police, look, I'm telling you that the police said they discovered an improvised explosive. It is for the police to investigate the source.
So let's keep it at that.
Yes,
we'll keep it at that.
The one that happened within the protesters also. We don't know until because I don't have authority to investigate.
So let's not insinuate that.
Can I just comment?
Okay, so we just get your final thoughts anyway, because
even when you started this discussion, all right, you said the DSS, the security services alerted Nigerians that there was more to this protest than meets the eye. You said that there are people who are not protesters but are lurking in the wings, to capitalize on this protest to cause mayhem. So you can now situate the issue of explosive in order to that. Number two, if the police said such number of people have been arrested, and because of that they found arms and ammunition, who is a journalist to say that there were no arms and ammunition?
No, I see a number of people arrested.
Yes.
Are they protesters? Are they hoodlums?
So we need to
have an understanding.
Please. You see.
We need to have an understanding of that.
Lekan, excuse me, Lekan. I have a grouse with journalists.
No, we are just setting the facts straight.
Just one minute. And I've already said it.
You are not setting any facts.
You're not setting any facts straight. You understand? You journalists, you are in a position to even educate the public. But most times, I don't know for whatever reason, the report, the stories you give, for me, are more confusing. For example, the idea that protesters should gather in specific places. It's not only in Nigeria, it's all over the world. Protesters are not supposed to protest on the road. People have been sentenced to jail terms.
Akin Bash.
Protesting on the roads.
Akin Bash, thank you so much. So the point is,
just before we get to Dr. Odims, I think just to come to his defense, we actually saw two different types of people come out for that protest. On one hand, we saw the protesters holding placards, moving around. Yes, inscriptions, and driving home their demands. And on the other hand, we actually saw young adults come out with weapons. So those, we assume, are hoodlums.
Well, I don't know the difference between an hoodlum and a protester, except maybe you have done your investigation that if you see anybody, you can identify this as a hoodlum and this as a protester. I don't know whether you have that special skill.
Investigations are still...
These hoodlums did not hit the roads without the protesters.
Well, investigations are still ongoing, so let's just spend it here and get more details from the police as regards who are those who actually wield the weapons and come to the protest grounds. But we don't really have enough time to actually exhaust this. But I want to say a very big thank you to Nelson Ekujumi, convener, Patriotism Awareness Forum, and of course, Akin Bash, APC Chieftain in Lagos State. Dr. Utchay Odims, we would have loved to get your final take on this, but maybe some other time. But then we thank you so much for also sharing your thoughts with us. Dashen.
Oh, yes. We'll actually have to go on a quick ad break right now, but when we come back, the show still continues. Stay with us.
It's been an interesting time on here, New Central Television, even as we have been talking about the End Bad Governance protest in Nigeria. We've been engaging people from all spectrums, as I told you earlier, knowing fully well that what we are hoping to achieve is something that speaks to the agitations of the protesters and also probable ways, solutions to the economic hardship that Nigerians are currently facing. And we also intimated you that the Nigerian President Bola Tinubu will be addressing Nigerians 7 a.m. Tomorrow morning, August 4. It's been affirmed, according to reports that we have, Nigerians are hoping to hear what he has to say. At this point, we'd like to introduce Dr. David James Egu, who is the co-founder Africa Advancement Forum, and he will also be lending his voice to this particular discourse. Dr. Egu, thank you so much for joining us. Can you please unmute your device?
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. So we'd like to get your reaction as regards how these protests has panned out. There are a bit of, let's just say, a school of thought who believes that this protest has failed in achieving its intended purpose. But now we have a president who has said he will be talking to Nigerians, and I'd like to find out if this protest has been ineffective, if it has failed, or probably it has actually drawn the attention of the #1 person in the country.
Okay, thank you very much for having me here. First of all, I actually don't think anyone in Nigeria should be talking about failed or not failed, right? Because nobody wins in all of these. The only person who wins is Nigeria. And if we are all Nigerians, we shouldn't at any point in time discuss failure or winning, because at the end of the day, our commitment as citizens is to ensure that we do what we need to do as a country to win together, right? So having said that, it is important for me to highlight what are the issues, what are the challenges, as it were. Every Nigerian who is alive today would know. Nobody needs to tell you that the economy is biting. Nobody needs to tell you there is insecurity. Nobody needs to tell you there is inflation. Nobody needs to tell you there is hunger in the land. These are obvious facts staring us in the face, right? And if a group of young people come together to say, you know what, we have had enough of the challenges, we have had enough of the hunger, we need to get the attention of our president to look into most of these challenges that we are going through. I don't see anything wrong about that. I think, in fact, as a matter of fact, these young people should be considered as heroes, because anyone who is willing to challenge you to do better at any point in time, whether you like it or not, the person wants your interest at heart. And in this case, whose interests are we talking about here? We are talking about the interests of Nigerians. We are talking about the interests of Nigeria. So what these young people have done, for me, is heroic. Both the president, the government, and all Nigerians must see them as such and pat them in the back. But now, this is the time for us to band together as a country to chart a way forward. And I will say, without any iota of doubt here, that these young people have demonstrated that they have what it takes to get the attention of government. And that is what they have done. In the last 1 week, you and I are aware that all the ministers who haven't quite engaged the people as much are doing the same now. So that means they are getting the attention of the government. Those who have kept quiet, and of course, I'm going to be very fair to Mr. President. There are quite a lot of things that have been reeled out in the last 2 days. Most of us weren't aware that the government has done. So what does that mean? It also means that there is a lacuna, a huge lacuna here, because you can't be working for the people and the people are not aware of what you're doing to ameliorate the challenges they are facing. I mean, for the very first time, in fact, let me be honest with you, for some of us, some of the information that has come to fore right from the time this protest has begun have actually showed that the president has worked. But the fact is that a lot of people are not even aware that the president has done most of the things he has done. So it has also been considered as failure on the part of those handling some of these things for Mr. President. I mean, you can't carry people along enough when it comes to issues of development that you are embarking on their behalf. At every point in time, I think it is incumbent of the government of the day to ensure that the people they are governing are fully aware at any point in time some of the things you are doing to ameliorate the challenges they are facing. In fact, if you keep quiet, people will assume. And when people assume, whatever they make out of that assumption, you must accept it. And that's exactly what's going on here. Most people are not aware that Mr. President has done most of the things they've recounted he has done in the last 3-4 days. Why must you have to wait to get to a point where things degenerate before you begin to engage with the people? And I must say, as a matter of urgency, in fact, as a matter of, I'm so excited now that the president had agreed to speak to the people. I expected him to have spoken the first day, because we've had casualties. People have died. No, you shouldn't have waited this long. So for me, I think the young people have demonstrated that they can get attention of government, which they have done. However, going forward, I expect that both the government, the people, and all of us as Nigerians must now band together to begin to look at this issue to find a way to address them.
All right, Doctor, if you can hear me, you talked about the first day, and it took me back to, an incident that happened during the protest. I would like to hear your thoughts, and I would like for you to tell us what you think the message is that the protesters were trying to send by, gathering at the house of the former president, Muhammadu Buhari, and also the Emir's palace, in Katsina.
Okay, first of all, I must say, when things happen like this, when you begin to find different people in different parts of the country galvanizing together to protest, you may not, and that is the truth, you may not be able to, as a matter of fact, ascertain how such protests will end, and that's the truth. So most of the people who have gathered at every point in time are merely looking for channels or people who can actually respond to some of the challenges. If people gathered at the Emir's palace, obviously they expected that an Emir is a symbol of authority. So as it were, if we gathered there, it would be symbolic to get someone to speak to us. If people gathered in the house of the former president, I also expected, they know as it were, that the former president is a stakeholder in APC. So if they are gathering, that's also very symbolic. But that is even not the issue. The most important thing now is that young people have protested, and they are protesting. And all of the things they are asking for is not too much. I'm being very honest with you. What are their issues? They want the fuel issue reversed. In fact, in my own opinion, even though I think that may not be possible, but I think it's incumbent on the president to explain to the people, some of the demands you are making, you've asked me for 12 things. Out of these 12 things you've asked for, immediately, I've already begun to act on 3 things. Give me a little bit of time, I will do this one. But so far, this and this, I may not be able to do, because at the end of the day, this is what is best for our country. It's accepted anywhere in the world. If you ask me for 10 things, I'm able to do 5 or 6 or 7 to assuade you. I've made attempts, and I think that's what we should be discussing at this moment.
Okay.
In fact, let me tell you this, Mr. President. Everybody keeps saying this, and that's the truth. They say he's a very experienced politician. As a matter of fact, he's known, very well known, to be one who has protested in the past, right? He's a pro-democratic personality. Everybody knows that. So I think this is the time to actually put all of those experience to work. You must engage your people. You must find a way to assuade them. You must give in. You must make concessions to get things to work and allow people to also. The truth is that when he gets it right, all of us will be better for it, and that's the truth.
All right, of course, that's what a lot of Nigerians are hoping for, that we all get it right in our policies and our decisions and interventions. Nelson, I'll come to you now. Let's talk about, let's begin from where Dr. Egu, landed in terms of the response of governance and the timeliness. Now, this is the narrative, that the government should have responded earlier, not now. And this is the reason. When the labor unions protested, they felt that the Nigerian government should have had some sort of, in a way, acceding to the demands of the Nigerian labor faster than the point where it resulted into a strike, into an industrial action. Now, we had a protest come up, which the notification had been given about a month before now, and they felt that, okay, the Nigerian government should have also, in a way, responded faster to the clamor and agitations of Nigeria, even before the protests would start. Now, a few days before August 1, we saw that, of course, the demands had been rolled out, but we saw that the Nigerian government has...
demands?
We have 10 demands now, and part of it was...
One. I know of about 5 different demands.
Okay, so I'm just trimming it down to the 10.
You are choosing the one you want to trim.
I'm not choosing anything because it's not my demand. I'm just looking at the demands presented by these so-called protesters. All right,
well,
so I'll land.
Okay.
Now, this is what I'm saying, 10 demands, and just a few days before the protest commenced, the Nigerian government started, implementing them. Commendable. But do you think that the government should have responded faster? Maybe it would have prevented the strike that happened with the labor unions and this protest that started on August 1.
Well, let me tell you for free that the labor union strike was a political strike. Because when we started this program, I told you clearly that the role of the media is to educate and inform and entertain. When labor presents the issue of national minimum wage as if it's an engagement between the federal government and labor, then it's wrong. The media has a responsibility to do that. Because when we say national minimum wage, it means the wage that will be paid to the worker, whether you are in public sector or private sector. It becomes law. The state government were not part of it. The organized private sector was also not part of it. The 2-day strike that they went on was just to punish Nigerians. Because at the end of the day, when they came back, before then, a tripartite committee had been set up. That is what the laws of Nigeria permits. And that committee is made up of federal government representative, state government representative, organized private sector, and organized labor. So it is that committee that will arrive at a consensus. So what the government did with regards to that was that the government did what was expected of it. It was just that the labor union, because we all know where they stood during the 2023 general elections, they were taking their pound of flesh on the Nigerian people for rejecting their political party. I can tell you for free. Then talking about this protest of August 1, nobody came out and said we are going to organize. We were hearing feelers from the social media. The Inspector General of Police addressed Nigerians just 2 days ago on August 2, after the day one of the protests. And the Inspector General of Police said his invitation to the organizers of this protest still stands. And as we speak, I'm not sure they have responded. This is a protest that was organized by faceless and unknown people with the intention to cause havoc.
Okay.
And we saw that havoc in some states. Hold on, just a minute. We saw that havoc in some states in the north. I told you that protest is not about the numbers or where you're gathered. When the organizers, these faceless organizers, we started seeing different demands. I told you when we organized the 2012 protest, every group coalesced under the Save Nigeria. We had a department of people who can speak on issues. Nobody, you can't be in security and be speaking on publicity. It's not your duty because we had the structure. But when you have protests in which there's no leader, nobody is claiming responsibility, it's a call to anarchy. And that is exactly what they are trying to do, and they have done it. So this protest is not about the economic conditions of Nigerians. Affects everybody. Mr. President has spoken about it. My local government chairman was was selling foodstuffs to people in my local government word by word at 50% the price. So there is no except if you are not mentally balanced. You say you are not feeling the pinch of the economic situation. It's a fact. But my own form of protest, I run programs, I talk on radio, I write articles. That's my own form of, but for me to go on the streets that will endanger the lives of other people, I will be the last person to do that.
All right, now, Dr. Egu, before we come back to you, Akin, Dr. Egu, if you can hear me, I would actually love to hear your reaction on all that Nelson has actually said.
Okay, thank you very much. I would not attempt to politicize this matter because first, I'm not a politician, right? It is only politicians that will be looking at truth and try to find a way to actually subvert that truth. I'm not a politician, so I'm going to be as straightforward as possible. I'm happy that everybody in Nigeria today believes that we are in a very, very difficult times economically. Everybody agrees, right? And let me tell you, there is what they call optics, right? I may take an action unintentionally, right? I'm not planning to hurt people or do something to, endanger the life of other people unknowingly. But that does not mean that I have not taken that action. That is obviously endangering people. And it is incumbent on me when people get my attention to say, sorry, Mr. A, these actions or inactions you have taken is endangering our life. The way you then respond to that action would tell everybody in the world whether you intentionally or unintentionally took that action. And that's the truth. Now, everybody is saying, young people say, listen, let me tell you, the fact that you see a lot of people who are seated in their homes or who are not on the street does not mean that they are not feeling the pains. In fact, they feel the pain as much as those of them who are on the street. All right? So everybody agrees the fact that there is challenge in this country. And
hello, doctor, can you hear me? Okay, we'll try to reconnect with him. Now let's come back to you, Akin. If you'd love to react to any of the things they've said, that's fine. But then they're still talking about demands. One of the demands made by some of the protesters or the protesters is the total scrapping of the 1999 Constitution. I'd love to hear from you on the validity of this demand.
Anyway, when people are calling for total scrapping, that's the anarchy. When the economy is scrapped now, on what do you run the government? On what basis do we continue to exist? Scrapping it means an end to governance, an end to our existence. But if people are calling for review of some section of the Constitution, I think it is legitimate. And as we are talking, I know that the National Assembly has set up Constitution Review Committee. Memoranda have been called for. And for the National to have gone to that extent is because of the pressure or the realization of the fact that the Constitution that they claim we Nigerians, when we Nigerians did not really say we Nigerians, we were not the one who actually came up with the Constitution. It shows that we all agreed that the Constitution is no longer serving us in the way and manner that our freedom can be guaranteed, that there will be justice, there will be fairness, there will be equality, and of course, there will be consensus of how we want to live together. So calling for constitutional review is legitimate. Calling for scrapping the Constitution is anarchy. So, and that takes us back to the fact that those who are even calling for, who are making demands, we have said it clearly, they are faceless. You cannot engage with them. Okay? It's also clear that their own knowledge of even what they're asking for in some instances is very limited. But let's give it to them, to the fact that there are challenges, okay? But challenges of hunger, challenges of inflation, high cost of living is not the same challenge that has to do with the constitutions, you understand? And I think we must separate it. But I need to react to what Dr. Egu said, which for me is cardinal and very critical. Okay. And that is the fact, you remember I said, not until when this agitation became heavy, that he got to know that the government is doing so much, but yet these efforts of the government are not properly communicated to the public. I think that's a very cardinal point. Because if you're doing anything that is even in the interest of all of us, and you're not communicating it to us, it means you leave us to be hazarding guesses. You leave us to be making insinuations, to be making conclusions based on wrong premise because we don't have information as to what you're doing. I think those who are managing the communication, who are managing the media, the information of Mr. President, need to talk more about the various policies at the various ministries, departments, and agencies that the government is involved in towards addressing the critical, challenges that Nigerians have. I think that's a very good point that I'm equally supporting.
Okay, so I will still put it to you. Looking at in terms of communication and how the cabinet of government has actually fared in the last 1 year. Now we've had guests who have come up to say that it seems as though the president has good intentions, but it seems the way it is, the ministers have not really done well in, like you said, communicating, most especially interpreting the ideas or the ideology of the president and ensuring that the impact is felt by the people. So I just want to paint a picture. Would you say that those who have formed that particular cabinet, when you look at the different personalities, would you say that they have the nose and the technical capacity to deliver? Would you say that they're actually filling the positions expected of them in terms of the ability to carry those policies of government, bring it to bed, and have it translate into socio-economic growth for the country? Or would you say that it's been misplaced?
I will not say it's been misplaced. As far as I'm concerned, I want to say that everybody who is in the cabinet of Tinubu is doing what is expected to be done. Don't forget that for the first time ever, President Tinubu gave them KPI, key performance indicators. The mandates of every ministry, department, and agency was stated very clearly to all of his appointees, giving them timeline, formative and summative assessment periods. Are you here? But you see, some of these ministers, it depends on you now. Take, for example, is it Boso Tijani now, who is in charge of IT and all that? Boso Tijani is doing his job, he's doing his bit, trying to see how, government activities can be interconnected through digital, transformation. And I remember that we were told that by this year, next year, almost all the government activities will have been online. What noise would you expect a Boso Tijani to be making? Even if he's making noise, how many people will appreciate that? But the fact which Egu said, which I've also supported, is that at every point, those who have been saddled with responsibility must let us know to what extent are their efforts in their various ministries addressing the Renew Hope agenda or contributing to the overall strategic plan of the federal government. But permit me at this point to also say that we journalists, we the public analysts and all that generally, I think we have not been fair to the federal government. And what do I mean? The federal government disburses funds to state government, gives state government palliatives, supports them in different ways. At what point have we, journalists, the media, the public, at what point have you taken the governors to account? At what point have you taken the council chairman to account? We're talking about Tinubu, for God's sake, what's all this? If a local government is properly run, the state is properly run. If things are properly run, the country is properly run.
And I think that was the reason why he asked that question, because, the local governments, the state, governments are supposed to be, doing all this on behalf of the president and the administration. So that was why he asked if, you think that, for example, the ministers and
yes,
every other person who is supposed to be doing their job are doing their job.
I get it. But because he limited himself to Tinubu and the ministers, unfortunately, just 1 minute, as if it's the president that will run the country. Imagine in the course of this protest, either rightly or wrongly, we were told that the rights sent to some states to be given to people are still being kept somewhere. Do you get it? And people have already gotten the thing. So please, we must put the council chairman, we must put the state government on the spot. What are they doing at their various levels that will help elevate you know, the problem we are currently having.
Okay, so we're going to come back to you. Nelson, just permit me to, because I know that we have Dr. James Egu back online, so we need to quickly take his reaction so we can come to Nelson because he's itching to say something and we'd like to hear that. Dr. James Egu, thank you so much for joining. We noticed that we lost connection with you for a bit. Let's just quickly get your reaction. Yes, so let's quickly get your reaction. Now, Akin has said that I limited myself, so we are just going to scale it down now. We'll pick it up from the cabinet ministers that surround the president. If they've actually translated the ideologies and policies of the president well in terms of implementation and communication, and if the government at the subnational level, I would want to extricate the local government for now because they've just been granted autonomy. But then, so we scale it from the cabinet down to the subnationals. If they've actually done well in being a worthy representative of the president.
Okay, first of all, you must understand that when it comes to the leadership of Nigeria, right, everybody holds the president accountable. Why? Because we believe that the buck stops at his table, and that's the truth. While I understand that the governors must also do their bits, because it is the governors that are responsible to each of the states that make up the federation. But however, if you look at all the issues young people raise, you can begin to imagine, even you without guessing, who did they address those issues to? They address it to Mr. President because they believe that the bulk of the challenges they are facing, the only one who could actually take action to make them come to pass speedily is Mr. President. Now, you ask me if the ministers are doing what they have to be doing. If they are actually carrying on their responsibilities, and I don't want to generalize here, there are some of them that are doing excellently well. Honestly, to be very honest, I won't mention them, but Nigerians know those ministers who stood out and they are doing excellently well.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. James. Thank you so much, Dr. James. All right, noted. So we also understand that we have Soho Seruwoja, legal practitioner and public affairs analyst, also joining us virtually. Thank you so much for joining us on this special broadcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Akin Bash and Nelson Ekujumi have made some salient points as regards the protests and the organizers of these protests. And one salient point that I could pull out from this is the fact that they said that this has a faceless kind of gathering, that it is structureless, and that is what has informed the violence that we've seen play out in the north and some, skirmishes in some other parts of the country. Now, from what you've observed so far, would you say that these protesters have gone out of the legal rights in terms of exercising their agitations towards government? Are they well within their rights in how they've managed it? Or you would say that they've actually violated some certain provisions of the law as regards how a protest should be organized?
Okay, thank you. And I also want to commend the opinions of some of the panelists there. But be that as it may, if you look at the reports coming out from various states, and you agree with me that they've been curfew has been imposed in some of the states as a result of the protests. As a result of the protests, we should understand one fact: Nigeria misunderstood the concept of protest for riots. So while some of the areas like in Kano State, what happened in Kano State is clearly a riot, and it is within the responsibility of government, no matter how weak the government or how undirected the government should be, to put a stop to such kind of activities, because it's no longer protest, is a riot now. Then two, the other areas like in this state again, that they impose curfew.
And Jigawa, we've had curfew in Jigawa, yes.
And all those stuff. That is not protest. Like, I appeared in this program before and I stated the difference between protest within the definition of Section 40 and Section 39 of the Constitution of Nigeria, 1999. Freedom of expression, freedom for peaceful assembly, or joining peaceful assembly and all those stuff. But whereby a protest where you barricade road or you inconvenience others for the purpose of expressing your opinion is no longer a protest, it's a riot. So I will agree. I think I agree with some of the comments made by one of the panelists to say that, well, this is actually outside the definition and the constitutional responsibility of citizens to express opinion against policies of government. It is basically a riot.
What about the one in Abuja?
No, the one in Abuja is something that is worrisome. And I think in a civilized and organized society, the head of the State Security Service, known as DSS, ought to be questioned by relevant authority, because there is a designated place and it has been recorded to be peaceful, but for the police and the State Security Service, popularly known as DSS, to barricade and at the same time swinging into action, attacking civilians, I think that is worrisome. That is really worrisome. Because I think for the one of Abuja is recorded peaceful. So to the extent of why the SSS, the State Security Service and the police to have sealed up that place is something I think no reasonable Nigerian should commend. It ought to be questioned.
All right, so we'll definitely come back to you. But just before, we spoke to him, you wanted to react to something that Akin said.
No, not react to him. I was trying to react to your question.
Okay.
You were asking that the states and the local government, are they keen into the renewed hope? And I want to tell you clearly that the states governments, the local governments, they are not part of the mandate of Mr. President. Mr. President obtained his mandate from the Nigerian people separately from them. Mr. President's mantra is renewed hope. In Lagos State, for example, the mantra of the administration of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu is Team Plus. So the local government also have their own responsibility. So you won't benchmark them with what the federal government, because they went to their people in their constituency and said, I will do X, Y, Z. They didn't carry Mr. President's roadmap. If they are taking Mr. President's roadmap, then you can be saying it looks alike. Yeah. But you and I know for free that whatever they are doing at the subnationals as well as the local government level, Mr. President does not have any authority over them, according to law.
But then isn't whatever it is they have to do in terms of their policies or programs, isn't it meant to be a reflection of the agenda of the president?
No, absolutely not. Don't forget, we run a multi-party democracy. We are not running a one-party state for crying out loud. Do you expect a state being governed by an opposition party to run the agenda of Mr. President? Is it possible? Is it logical? So what we expect is that at the various tiers of governance, that the people should hold their leaders accountable. Yeah. Whether your problem in Sokoto is water, and me in Kano, my problem is fish, or maybe rats, I will hold my elected representatives accountable, both from the National Assembly as well as the state assemblies, the state government as well as the local government. So people's problem differs from one locality to another. So a governor has gone out to campaign, elect me. Excuse me once again. So when he's elected, we are supposed to benchmark him against the promises he made to us. We are not going to benchmark him against the promises of Mr. President, because Mr. President was not the one that obtained the mandate of governorship. So Mr. President will be benchmarked against the promises he made when he was campaigning for presidency.
Okay, now let's come back to you, Taiwo, if you can hear me. While you were speaking earlier, you said something about how the protest in some of these states that turned violent ended up, you said it was clearly a riot. Now, I would actually love for you to tell us how you think the violence and the vandalism that actually erupted in some of these states translates to the economic struggles that, you know, it's being faced in Nigeria.
Okay, you see, if you look at it, can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes,
I can hear you. Go ahead.
First of all, if you look at the items, the reason for the protest, the pre-notice, remember, it's not a protest that sprang as a result of impromptu activities. It's a protest that is not as a result of an ongoing event. And if you look at the items, or the demand being put in place, you discover that, sorry, I may say, I have there is a minority opinion as to some of the demand. It's a misconception of how governance ought to run, and at the same time, the misconception of narratives that has been passed on to us over and over again. Some of them are genuine, while some of them are misplaced. A good example is, I will now link it to the event that is going on now. The constitutional review, and I could make people understand that there is no country in the world, including the most celebrated democratic country, that everybody in that country came together to write their constitution. It's as a result of representative participation, which Nigerian constitution clearly states out or spelled out. And every Nigerian at the age of 18 has the opportunity every 4 years to partake in that process. Now, the riots that has taken place now, you discover that one, it will affect the economic growth of that particular community. Like in Kano, for example, courts were vandalized. And for those courts to be put in place, now, it will not only affect the judicial process, but it's also going to affect the economic process of the state, because commerce also strive, judicial process, commerce strive when the judicial process goes smoothly. Then two, you will now discover that the attitude exhibited by majority of the youths and their expression in the course of the protest, or when you sample their opinion, you discover that they don't even have an idea or the reason why they want to protest. But they just want to carry out the tendency of, okay, the blame game. Because I can't see any reason whereby you are protesting for good governance and you are looting, destroying, vandalizing not only private owned property, but also the government owned property that every one of us are also responsible to keep. So that is just it.
Dr. Toho Eruoja,
Yes.
we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you in a very short while. Let me quickly just get Dr. David Egu's summation as regards this, or reaction to this. Let's look at the protest now as it has played out in the north, and have an understanding of why, because we didn't have any sort of looting or vandalism as it is in the southwestern parts of the country. Let's have an understanding of why we had that play out in the north. And the reason is because one of our guests said that politicians, governors, the subnational government has not really done well in meeting the needs of the people. In the north, we have people who have come out to protest, but eventually went on into vandalizing properties, as we've actually established on the show. Do you think there's a way whereby we can understand the rationale behind the kind of protest that took place in the north and the way it was organized in the south?
Okay. First of all, you must also realize that, I think I highlighted this before. I said, when people are angry, you may not be able to control the outcome or how, in the way and manner in which they will act. But you must also understand the difference between protesters, most of the protesters in the south, compared to those of them in the north, because majority of those of them who actually went out on the street to protest in the north, you must understand, you have to be realistic here, are marginaries, right? Those set of people who all of us are aware are a bit less educated. So whether you like it or not, when once such people find opportunity in the guise of protest, if you're not careful, they may actually take advantage of that for something else, right? For anarchy, you must understand that. And also, that's also where I must commend the police. Generally, the police have actually conducted themselves in way and manner in which we all should be proud of, and that's the truth. So for the vandalism you see in most of the northern states, you must also realize that the pressure, the pressure of the hunger, while it is spread out across the entire country, but those of them in the north are actually feeling the impact a lot more. You must understand that. Right? Because you already have a population. Most of the population are uneducated, especially among young people. When such people find any such opportunity, they may take advantage of it for the wrong reason. So that's also why I think the security agencies in those areas should have been a lot more proactive, right? Understanding the anger in the land and the fact that there is a protest that was actually planned, you must have looked out or map out a strategy on how to actually contain eventualities, and that's the truth. So when you look at the way people have behaved in the West and the way people have behaved in some of the northern states, you will realize that the difference is actually based on the level of exposure, right? Because I don't see the reason why someone who is upwardly mobile, educated, exposed, we want to vandalize a property that you also own. You wouldn't want to do that. If you realize that Nigeria belongs to all of us, and the amenities in that country, in our country, is already limited. Everybody's crying will have limited amenities. So why would you go out to vandalize the ones that are readily available? So it also borders on the level of what people understand about governance. So that is where all of us have a responsibility. I also think the governors in the north have a responsibility. You have to educate your people. You have to. You don't just use people during election as talks. You must expose them to education. When once they are educated and empowered, there are some certain action. Of course, we all should. If you find yourself in a situation where people don't disagree with you, then you're not doing something right. Okay. So this protest is a form of disagreement. The young people of Nigeria are saying, we are not comfortable in the way and manner you have governed us thus far. These are the areas we think you can improve on. Do X, Y, Z. So as a leader, we all now have a responsibility. That is why when people say, okay, why don't you also hold the governors accountable? Yes, I want to hold the governors accountable. But now, most young people believe that some of the things that are wrong with Nigeria, the only person who can quickly respond to them is Mr. President.
Okay.
And they are correct.
Just before we touch down, Akin, as a media person, I would actually love to hear your thoughts on this. We know how powerful social media is, and we can actually see, how it effectively garnered or gathered protesters to come out and demonstrate. Now, in as much as it was powerful enough to gather people to come out and protest, what role do you think it played? What role do you think that it played in fueling the violence that actually happened in some of these states like Kano, Yobe, and others?
Yeah, whatever has positive will have negative consequences. Social media, like you all know, I mean, you have people who carry fake news, while you have social media that carry, right news. So the power of social media to galvanize people towards what is true is the same power that social media has to galvanize people towards false. I'm an advocate of regulation of social media. Take, for example, I belong to a club, local state club, on our platform.
Okay.
On our platform. There was this argument today. And I said, please, I am not the cause of this argument. Rather, I am reacting to a false information. Imagine, somebody doctored 2 pictures, and after I queried, you now discover that it was false. So my point is this: social media is great, it's good, but to the extent that it has positive consequences and negative consequences.
Okay, so we're actually coasting home now. Let's quickly get your final thoughts, Toso Oseruwaja, as regards the fact that the president will be talking to Nigerians tomorrow. We are hoping that, you know, this violence or these agitations or these pains and all these flying around would end. What are your final thoughts in about 30 seconds on this?
Okay, my final thought is that most times we misunderstand the fact that what the hardship facing Nigeria is a result of policy of the current administration. No, it's as a result of law. Like I told people that immediately subsidy was removed when the president announced subsidy, which was backed by the Petroleum Industry Act. The Petroleum Industry Act, you discovered that everything changed because fuel is a determining factor in the life of every Nigerian. And in every country, they subsidize one thing or the other. So whatever the president is going to address or whatever is going to say, we still need to go back to that legislation, that law, and look at it carefully. And we need to see how we can supplement the usage of petroleum to other commodities to subsidize the hardship we're causing now.
All right, thank you so much, Towo. Now let's have 30 minutes, you know,
30
to
seconds.
Hear your, 30 seconds, sorry, to hear your final thoughts.
He's actually enjoying it, sir.
Well, my final thought is that as we expect to listen to Mr. President tomorrow, I think one thing that has played out clearly in this protest riot is that there is need for government to invest heavily in education. A lot of people who came out, who joined them, if you hear their comments, if you see some of the demands, you know they don't have education, they don't know how society runs. So we need to invest more in education so as to take our people off the street so that they are not misused for purposes other than national interest.
All right, thank you very much, Nelson Ekujumi, convener, Patriotism Awareness Forum, and Akin Bash, APC Chieftain. Thank you so much for gracing this particular studio and talking to us about this. Dr. David Egu, co-founder, Africa Advancement Forum, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, Toho Oseruwaja, legal practitioner, public affairs analyst. You actually joined us from UK. It was nice talking to you. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for making this very robust and engaging.
Thank you very much.
And that's how we call it a day on today's edition of how we have x-rayed the End Bad Governance protest on News Central Television. A very big thank you to you for actually staying by to carry us through all this. And we will be back some other time to continue to talk to the conscience of governments and citizens as regards peaceful coexistence. My name is Lekan Onabanjo.
And I'm Dashen Usman. Have a wonderful weekend.